Sincere salutes, y'all. A.D. McCoy here, standing on a real McCoy proverb. We here till we ain't. We can till we can't. Might as well go hard in the paint. With that said, I got more water for y'all. This next piece is entitled Little Mikey Strong. Now, this one is a short story as opposed to the poems. And y'all bear with me. Check it out. It's a situation with a schoolyard bully that turns into a friendship. Y'all ready? Here we go. Little Mikey Strong is a 14-year-old boy. He's a short, bald, compact, very muscular kid for his age. He loves to play all kinds of sports, and he's very good at them because he practices a lot. Mikey also has a black belt in karate. He has been in Mr. Lee's class since age 5. He's one of Mr. Lee's best students, and he has won many awards and trophies. And Mikey loves fruits like apples, oranges, bananas. His favorite? Strawberries. He also enjoys vegetables. His favorite? Steamed broccoli, lightly sprinkled with cinnamon. Yummy. Mikey also loves to exercise. He can do 100 push-ups without stopping and 200 sit-ups non-stop. And he loves going to school. He has lots of friends there. He's always smiling and positive, and so making friends come easy to him. He often encourages his schoolmates to do the best they can, to believe in themselves, and to take their schoolwork seriously. One day, a new boy transferred to Mikey's school. His name was George Snellingham, a big-boned 14-year-old. His size already made him quite noticeable, but he had thick, almost unruly, reddish-orange hair, freckles, and a squeaky voice. The kids at the other school were mean to George. They would call him names like Georgie Smellyham and Smelly Pants and Carrot Top and Dot to Dot because of his freckles. Kids can be so cruel. And even though George was a big boy, still the smaller kids teased him. Maybe because George was a slow runner and they were so much faster. But mostly, George was passive and non-confrontational. This made him an easy target. They also dubbed him Frankenstiff. One day, George got fed up with all the teasing, taunting, hurt, and sadness. He especially had it up to here with that rotten Tyler Hornsfield, who was quick-witted, sharp-tongued, and he too had some size on him. Tyler saw George as just a big, soft, unattractive pushover, and so he proceeded to give George a hard time, always. Well, today would be a day of reckoning. Between classes, Tyler and his 2 flunkies followed George into the restroom. They were mimicking sounds of and mannerisms of a rooster. To them, that shock of ginger hair atop George's head reminded them of a rooster. So they said. George parked in front of one of the 4 mirrors in the restroom. Tyler and company continued teasing and taunting. Hurtful noise echoed off the walls of the restroom like a bad song in auto-tune. Something dark and primal clicked on inside of George. The usual pain and shame he felt was replaced by bubbling fury. He let it wash over him like a hot, steaming shower. It felt good and powerful and comforting. George turned to Tyler swiftly. He took a power step towards him. George's face now a distorted mask of righteous rage. His fist, surprisingly quick and strong, punched Tyler square in that usually upturned nose of his. Crunch! Tyler screamed like a girl watching a scary movie. He felt such a tremendous shock of pain as his nose broke. He crumpled to the ground in an agonizing heap, holding his offended nose, now just a whimpering puppy who wet his pants. Tyler's flunkies saw what George did with such quickness and power, and they froze up. Both ran out, fearful, both trying to get through the door at the same time. It was comical. Unfortunately for George, schools have a zero tolerance for violent behavior. Adding to his misfortune was the fact that Tyler's parents were rich, influential, and contributed often to the school's economic fortitude. It did not matter that George was provoked. He was immediately expelled. His mother, who loved her beautiful baby boy unconditionally, moved him to this new school, hoping for a new start and better days. George now sat behind Mikey in Miss Rosemont's English class. George had a chip on his shoulder. He brought it with him. It was heavy, a sweet burden, like a backpack stuffed with Twinkies, only the creamy feeling replaced with concrete. He vowed to never be nice to any of these new kids. He could feel their cold, judgmental, beady eyes on him as he doodled, quite artfully, in his notebook. I need to show these kids, all of them, who's boss. I'm not going for this no more, he thought to himself. He sized up Mikey and decided that this bald, buff kid would make an excellent punching bag. Clobbering Mikey would also put all the rest on notice that Big George Snellingham will be taking crap from no one, not anymore. After school, George saw Mikey with his books in hand, waiting on a school bus. George marched towards Mikey on a mission to punch him right in the nose like he did Tyler. Mikey saw George approaching with angry, deliberate steps, fist balled up, and a fierce look in his eyes. Mikey rightfully concluded that this would not be a friendly encounter. Early in class, Mikey tried to introduce himself to George, but George rejected Mikey's hospitality with a dismissive, yeah, whatever. And now, here comes this fiery-haired, fierce-eyed, overgrown 8th grader wearing the stench of bad intentions. Mikey, smiling, greeted George. Hello again, George. How you doing? Once again, Mikey was rejected. Now, within reach, George drew back his right arm and fired that massive young knuckle sandwich straight at Mikey's nose. But Mikey saw this coming a mile away. He simply blocked it. Now what? George saw that a crowd of fight-hungry young spectators were forming, all eyes on Georgie and Mike. Some were laughing, some were taunting, others had their cell phones at the ready. George was now more determined than ever. He had to prove himself. He just had to. He would have the last laugh, or his name wasn't George, Mama Say I'm Beautiful Snellingham. George growled, wild as a wounded grizzly bear. He charged at Mikey, swinging wildly. Mikey effortlessly bobbed, weaved, blocked, and utterly frustrated George's every move. Suddenly, Mikey remembered what Mr. Lee once said. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for a bully is defeat him and then offer your hand in friendship. So Mikey decided to strike back. As George tried to land yet another futile blow, Mikey spun on his heel in a blur with a powerful roundhouse kick that smacked Big George square on the jaw. Pow! Right in the kisser. Lights out, Big George. Sorry. He went down like a felled oak tree. Timber! But Mikey moved swiftly and caught George by the shoulders and eased him to the ground. The spectators went nuts. They were all rooting for Mikey, and he did not disappoint. It was all captured on those cell phones. Sorry, Big George, you about to go viral. The spectators began to chant Mikey's name. Mikey, Mikey, Mikey. But he silenced them all with a raised finger, cautioning them. He was no hero, just as George was no villain. He understood that George was led by two things, pain and fear. And so there were no winners or losers here, only opportunity. George, now dazed, moaned and tried to get to his feet. Mikey offered his hand and helped him up. George took it and helped him to his feet. From that day, Mikey and George became good friends. And Mikey's friends became George's friends. And George learned that no matter the look or the size of a person, it is always best to accept you for you, to celebrate the good about yourself, and work on things that you can improve upon. All right? The end. Now, let me know what you guys think. If you have any story ideas, suggestions, get at me. I'd love to hear from you. I'm still at the Sacramento County Jail. You can email me at sacsheriff.com/AD McCoy, XR1418122. Again, sacsheriff.com, AD McCoy, XR1418122. All right? I appreciate you guys. Thank you.